Chag Urim Sameach. Happy Chanukah to all of you. Mr. Sheldon Adelson and Dr. Adelson, Gidi Mark, friends. I don't realize yet. You agree with Ben Gurion? Do you really believe in miracles? Yeah. You do? You know, actually, I'll tell you should. Because if it were not for miracles, I wouldn't be standing here. I'm that serious. It's not a written speech, as you can see. I shouldn't be standing here because when I was born in the former Soviet Union, I was not born to an assimilated family, because assimilation is leaving certain culture for the sake of some other culture. I didn't leave the Jewish culture. My parents didn't leave the Jewish culture. Probably my great-grandparents did. When I was born, we didn't know anything about Jewish culture. I promise you that if after Yom Kippur War, someone would have said to me that Yom Kippur War is called Yom Kippur War because the Israeli Chief of Staff's name was Yom Kippur, I could believe him. I was not naive. I was well educated. I just didn't know what Yom Kippur was. And I shouldn't be standing here because when I was growing up, I had no reason and no chance to stay Jewish. I was the only Jew in my class. I lived with my parents in all kinds of strange places where there was no sign of any Jewish life or Jewish community. And later, when for some reason that is hard to explain, I started learning Hebrew. I was learning Hebrew all by myself. I didn't have anyone to talk Hebrew to. And honestly, I don't know why. Because I was not in practical terms going to Israel. I was a student in the Soviet Union. People couldn't go to Israel those days. Some applied, but most of us actually became refuseniks, denied our exit visas. But I learned Hebrew and I started teaching Hebrew. And most chances were I would never make it to Israel because I was arrested. No, not for teaching Hebrew. There was no law like that. I was arrested for illegal possession of drugs. Yeah. Yeah. That was the exact reason to be quite serious. No, nothing to laugh about. Because that was another reason why I wouldn't make it. Because in prison, I didn't know how to deal with all these questions. What exactly did you have? How come they took 2 kilos from me and I got 2 years of imprisonment? And they took something very strange from you and you got 3 years in prison. I didn't know how to deal with these questions. I was a Hebrew teacher, not a drug addict or a drug dealer. And it was not easy. Because still another reason for me not to be here was because, as I've just mentioned, on the Festival of Chanukah, instead of going from darkness to light, instead of enjoying a Chanukah miracle, I enjoyed 3 years sentence in Moscow court. It was the second light of Hanukkah. The first, and I didn't know actually, I knew it was Hanukkah, I didn't know which candle it was, because I was brought to court straight from the isolation cell, where for some reason they don't provide calendars, neither Jewish calendars nor any other calendars. So I was not sure exactly what day it was. The first thing I said after hearing the sentence of 3 years in a labor camp, I shouted to my wife, who was the only person who was allowed into the courtroom among all the other official representatives of the government sitting there reading newspapers. I shouted to her, "Which candle is it? Which candle is it?" As you can imagine, it took her some time to realize what I wanted from her. She just heard that her husband was going to a labor camp for 3 years. Finally, she realized what the question was, and she said, "It's the second candle." It was the second candle. I didn't have candles in prison. I lit 2 matches, which was probably still another reason for me not to Israel ever not to be standing here in front of you. Because prisoners don't like crazies in their cells. And how would you define a behavior of a guy who walks for the first time into the cell, who takes out 2 matches and lights them by the window? It's a crazy, obviously. Crazies don't survive. It took me some time to explain to them that I'm not crazy. And I was severely injured in the labor camp. And I did hear the so-called doctors say, this guy, he's dead. Why would we give him any treatment? But I do believe in miracles. And miracles are not when all of a sudden there's some lightning or some voice coming from the sky. Miracles is something that is happening every day. We just have to see these things happening. We don't normally. We are too busy with our day-to-day life here in Israel and all over the world, Jews and non-Jews alike. Miracles are here. Because still another reason why I shouldn't be standing here in front of you today is that when 12 years ago some people explained to me that there would be a program and hundreds of thousands of young Jews would come to Israel for short trips and will explore their Jewish roots and will be acquainted much better with the state of Israel, I said, no. Nice dream. If you guys bring 5,000, great. If you ever bring 10,000, even better. We will be very grateful. Now you're part of, what is it, Gidi? Nearly 250,000? Nearly 250,000. And the very fact that there are people like the Adelsons sitting here, the Adelsons that could do all kinds of other things and are doing other things, but they did get involved, and the program is growing and growing and growing, and they're bringing others on board. And all this, once again, what is it? It's about, nice things, money, contributions, programs, programming. No, it's about miracles. And this is how we see things when we look properly. And I shouldn't be standing here in front of you, but I am standing here in front of you. And probably many of you, if you think deep inside, shouldn't be here today, but you are here today. And this is probably the real Chanukah miracle. It's not about just lighting the candles, and it's not about remembering the Maccabees. It's about making these things happen. And if you want to talk about miracles in a year or 2 or 3 from now, it's not just about listening to what I have to say. It's about what you have to say about Jewish miracles in the future. And I'm sure, I can assure you, including from personal experience that I don't wish to any of you, you have something to say about the Jewish future and the Jewish miracles. Because between you and me and the lamppost, this is the reason you are here. So that in a year or 2 or 10 years from now, you will have something to say about Jewish continuity and Jewish miracles. Chag Sameach.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של חנוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.